Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be talking about GoodReads top 10 romance books of 2022, so let's just get right into it. So I've decided I'm going to go through these books in the order that they won, basically. So I'm going to start with the book that actually won the romance category this year and then work my way back to the book that came in 10th. And I have read all of these and I'm just going to talk a little bit about which ones I think maybe shouldn't have been on the list, which ones I did really love, which one I personally think should have won now that I've read them all, and just, talk about each book a little bit and what I liked, what I didn't like, and things like that. I will say this year I feel like I really started to realize why people hate this so much, like the GoodReads Choice Awards. I feel like a lot of people really don't like it, and being a new reader last year and the year before, I didn't really understand why. But I think this year I finally got a little bit of that where I was like, oh, okay, that's why you guys don't like this. And it's because like a lot of the books on this list are not even romances, and honestly, like, it is a popularity contest. Like, that's just blatantly obvious because obviously the book that was in the hands of the most readers is going to win just because most people read it. And so that brings us to the first book, which is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This book won this year. Honestly, I didn't love this book, and I also have talked to people who aren't even big romance readers and they didn't love this book, so I really don't know who was out there voting for this, but I just thought this book was easily the worst Emily Henry book out of the ones that have come out so far. People We Meet on Vacation has been my favorite, but this one I just found was so boring. I didn't really care a lot about the characters. I didn't like the ending of it at all, and I just felt like it was different than her other books, and I didn't like that. Like, it was different in a bad way, not in a good way. But like, obviously this one was in the hands of the most people. This one is the one that everybody had. It was probably on skids at Costco being sold rapidly. But I don't know. It was okay. I gave this one 3 stars when I read it. I didn't really connect with the characters. I didn't love the romance. I honestly felt like there wasn't really much of romance in this one, to be honest. I remember reading this and thinking it was women's fiction. This one follows a girl who is a literary agent, and she hates small towns, but her sister begs her to go to this small town for a sister's trip, and she finally gives in and they go to this tiny little town. But she keeps running into this really grumpy editor that she doesn't like, and things sort of go from there. Honestly, the romance just was not there in this one. The fact that this was voted the best romance of the year is just like really bothering me, and I know, like I said, I know it's because it's the most popular book and it's the one that most people read, and some people aren't picky about their romances, so they probably love this. But honestly, the majority of this book, she's going out with other guys. She's not even going out with him. And I was just like, I didn't care about their relationship or their romance. This was definitely much more of a book about her relationship with her sister than anything. And to me, that's women's fiction. That's not romance. The romance was not the main plot line. And I just found that I didn't care. I thought the ending was pretty lackluster. It wasn't interesting. So yeah, I'm really kind of sad to see this one win because there was definitely other books on this list that I think were way better, especially in the romance department. At number 2 was Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This is another one that, like, it's not even a romance book. This one I think is probably even worse than Book Lovers in that regard, where this one, the guy and the girl in this book are maybe together for 5 to 10% of the book. Like, it is not about their relationship whatsoever. This book follows a woman who has gotten out of prison and is basically looking for the daughter that she had right when she got into prison. She was pregnant, and so she's trying to find this daughter now. It's years later. And I don't know, there was no plot twist in this. There was no interesting storyline. It was literally just a story of a woman trying to find her daughter. And to me, like, I kind of thought it was gonna be like she didn't know where her daughter was, like she was gonna have to go looking for her, but she knows exactly who has custody of her daughter and where they live and all this stuff. Like, there was no interesting plot points at all. Like, it was just like, okay, this is the story, and that was it. I didn't feel like there was anything exciting about this, or like, it had like its sort of, like, I guess, emotional moments, but even then, like, not really. And I just found this was really underwhelming, especially as a romance. Like, there was almost no romance in this book whatsoever. I gave this one 3 stars, didn't really like it, and honestly I feel like the only reason this is even on like the top 5 is because it's written by Colleen Hoover, and TikTok is just obsessed with anything she writes. Like, it literally doesn't matter if it's a romance. and I just wish they would stop putting her in the romance category, because this was not a romance. Number 3 was It Starts With Us. Again, a book I'm sure is only on here because Colleen Hoover wrote it. I did enjoy this one, but do I think it was like in the best romances of the year? No. Like, this was written for all of the fans of It Ends With Us, obviously, and that's fine. Like, people wanted it. I get why they wanted it. I bought a copy. I read it. I enjoyed it. But, like, I wouldn't say that this was anything super groundbreaking or original or exciting. It was just a extended epilogue, basically, of It Ends With Us. And I don't know, like I said, I gave this one 4.5 stars when I read it, and I enjoyed it. But I don't think it was, like, the best romance of the year. It was good, and it was what I wanted, but that was basically it. I can't really say too much about this one because obviously I would have to spoil It Ends With Us to talk about this one, like, plot-wise. But like I said, I enjoyed it enough to enjoy it, but not enough to think it was worthy of the top 10 spot, especially at number 3. Next was Love on the Brain by Hazelwood. This was number 4 on the top 10 list, and this one, I don't know how I feel about this one. Again, I feel like it's just on here because the author is super hyped on TikTok, which is unfortunate that that's what it's come to, is like, if it's hyped on TikTok, it's gonna win, or it's gonna make the list even, but this one was okay. I gave this one 4 stars when I read it, and I even said in my review that it was very close to being a 3-star. Honestly, looking back on it, it probably was a 3-star. This book follows a woman who is working for NASA, or she like gets a new job with NASA, and she finds out she's now working with her grad school nemesis. And I find a lot of books are trying to sort of almost replicate The Hating Game, and like just the vibes of that book and the interactions between the characters. I find that's being replicated a lot in workplace type romances, and I felt like this was kind of one of them. This was also very, very similar to The Love Hypothesis. Like, I think you could have taken the author off of this book and you would have known who wrote it, and not because the writing style was different, but just because the story is so similar. And I didn't love that. Like, I would have liked to see her do something a little bit different, but obviously she didn't do that. I think what was missing in this one for me was when I read like an enemies to lovers, especially like something that's not dark, like something that's very much like an office setting or something, I think what sells it for me is that I have to truly believe that they hate each other. Like, they cannot stand the other's existence. Like, the other person breathing bothers them. Like, that's the kind of animosity I want between 2 people at the start of these books. And in this book, like, I genuinely did not believe for a single second that the guy in this book was not absolutely obsessed with her. Like, from the very, very beginning, I was like, okay, he's in love with her. Like, there was not a single moment where I was like, oh yeah, they're definitely enemies. And yet, this book kept trying to paint them as enemies. And to me that was just annoying, because I was like, you're making it seem like I'm stupid and I'm not going to catch on that he's in love with her, and I do. And so I really didn't love that, didn't vibe with that. I don't know where I'd put this on the list if I was going to rank these myself. Like, it's in number 4, which I feel like is a little high for it. Honestly, I would maybe think this should be maybe more in like the number 8 category, or honestly even not in the top 10, like maybe just somewhere in the top 20. But wasn't a huge fan of this one either, and like, I swear I did like some of these books, but honestly, like, the ones that came in like the top places were ones that I just thought were like mediocre. But I know, like I said, it is like a popularity contest, so of course they were gonna win, which sucks, but just, I guess, is the way it is. Number 5 was Every Summer After by Carley Fortune. This is actually the book I voted for. I kind of wish Goodreads would almost make like a rule that you have to have actually read the top 10 books to vote for your top favorite in the top 10, because like I said, I think that would put a stop to the popularity contest sort of thing, because like, obviously a lot of people probably read Book Lovers and didn't read anything else on this list, so of course they're going to vote for that. And so I almost wonder if that wouldn't be a better route for them to take, is like, you have to have read the top 10 books to even be eligible to vote for one. But this one was the one I voted for. Like I said, it was my favorite at the time. I can say now, like, if I could go back and vote for something else, I would. But I did enjoy this one. It was also a Canadian author, so that sort of swayed my vote a little bit. And this one, I think my main issue with it was that it follows a very similar plot line and storytelling method as Love in Other Words and People We Meet on Vacation, and I just sort of feel like it's becoming overused in the popular books. Like, we now have 3 popular books that are written basically the same way, and I just think that's kind of getting a little bit repetitive, but the story itself I did absolutely love. This is another one, again, like I said, very similar, where they're childhood best friends, completely inseparable, and this one takes place in Ontario's cottage country, which I was obsessed with. That was like the main thing that drew me to this book, and I absolutely loved those vibes. And then this couple, obviously they get older, they have a falling out, and now they are back in each other's lives, and you're kind of working your way towards what caused their falling out. And like I said, I really enjoyed this one, and it was good. I do think number 5 is like a reasonable place for this to be on this list, to be honest. I would maybe like to see it in the top 3, but it is one that I enjoyed. I just do think it's getting a little bit repetitive with that storyline. I'm excited to see her new book coming out in the new year though, what she's going to do with that one. Number 6 was Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This book I gave 3 stars to. I thought this was so mediocre. I honestly can't believe it made it into the top 10 romance books of the year because it was just nothing special. Like, I read this, and literally when I'm filming this, I read this yesterday, and I feel like by next week I won't even be able to tell you what this book was about because it was that forgettable. It just wasn't interesting. Like, there was nothing unique about this book. Like, I don't know what people are raving about or what's drawing them to this book, but every single thing in this book has been done before, and not just like been done before here and there, but been done before like hundreds of times. And also, like, it just didn't make sense to me. Like, there was this random like fake dating plot line in here that had absolutely no business being there. Like, it didn't make any sense to the story, and it was just all of a sudden they were fake dating for no reason. And I didn't get that at all. It kind of just felt like the author was trying to squeeze that in there just so that people would be like, oh, it's a fake dating book, you should read it, you know? And I don't know. I thought that was stupid. I didn't like that. It didn't make a lot of sense. This is just like a small town romance where this woman's twin sister abandons her with her child in this small town, and there's this grumpy guy that's kind of around and ends up sort of helping her. But like, there was nothing super spectacular about it, and it didn't even like, sometimes I read a book and there's nothing spectacular about it, but there's something about just the vibe of the book that does it for me. Like, I would say Juniper Hill by Devney Perry is one of those where I just love that book. Like, nothing really crazy happens in it, but it's just something about the way it's written and the characters, it's just different, and this book just didn't have that for me, and it was so long. This was the last one I read for this video because I kept putting it off because it was so ridiculously huge. This is like literally over 500 pages. It's a 16-hour audiobook. Like, it had no business being that long. And so I just didn't really vibe with this one either. I definitely didn't see the hype around it. It was very basic and like been done before, like I said. Next at number 7 was Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. This one I also gave 3 stars to. I did not like a lot of the books on this list, to be honest, but this one I was really sad about because there was only this one book that made even the top 20, I'm pretty sure, that was an LGBTQ plus book. And so I was kind of sad that we only got one of those to begin with, but then once I read this and realized that this was the one we picked, I was like really sad about it because this was just not good at all. And I was like, there are so many better LGBTQ romances out there. Like, why was this the one we decided was the best of the year? Honestly, I don't want to say I hated this book because I don't think it was that bad, but I do just think this needed a lot of work, to be honest. This one follows Delilah, obviously, and I just found she was so juvenile. Like, she was supposed to be 30 years old, and she was literally acting like a preteen. Most of the story honestly revolves around her and her relationship with her stepsister, which is not great, obviously, and she's sort of moping around this town, just sort of being like, oh, nobody likes me, like, no one ever wanted to hang out with me, and, you know, I was, you know, never had any friends and all this stuff. But she's constantly talking about how her stepsister had all these friends, and they would, you know, make fun of her, and they called her a ghoul once, and, like, not even kidding, literally this happened one time when they were, like, I don't know, like 14, and she's still moping about it when she's 30, being like, oh, they were like so mean to me and blah blah. And she's like, I didn't have any friends, and they were like, you know, making fun of me. But the whole time I was reading it, I was like, was this girl incapable of going out and getting her own friends? Like, you're not usually only friends with your stepsister or your sister or your brother's friends. Like, usually siblings have their own friend groups, and she just kept blaming the stepsister for her not having friends because her friends didn't like her. And I was like, why did you just not go out and make your own friends? Like, you're literally blaming everybody else in your life for your problems except for yourself. She also kind of treated everyone like crap and then was shocked when they didn't want to hang out with her. Like, I don't know. I didn't get her as a character, and because of that, I just wasn't interested in the romance. Like I said, I feel like the romance wasn't even the main plotline in this one either. I feel like it really took a back burner to her, like, animosity towards her sister, and she ends up dating one of her sister's friends, but it's so, like, weirdly done, and the friend isn't that great either. She's, like, constantly telling her, like, oh, I don't do casual, while simultaneously doing casual. And then she was like, oh, we have to keep this a secret, like, we can't tell anyone, and there was no reason for that, and she was just kind of being a jerk about it, and, like, I just didn't like either of the characters in this, and I was just really sad about it, because, like I said, this was the only book on the list that didn't have a straight couple in it, and I just was excited for that, and it just wasn't good. Like, I feel like there was so much better out there that could have made this list, and so that was really disappointing. Didn't like this one. I wouldn't continue on with this series, honestly. I was not a fan. And this was one of the ones I was hesitating to read because I hadn't heard very many good things about it, and I think that unfortunately there was a reason for that. Number 8 was Twisted Hate by Anna Huang. This one I think I gave 4 stars to. This one was my favorite out of this series, but I still didn't think it was that amazing. I know people are, like, obsessed with these books, and I, like, get that they're good in some regards, but, like, others they're just not. Like, I'll give them the fact that they have 5-star smut, but they have 3-star plot lines, so it sort of diminishes that. And I just found that, like, the first 2 books in the series were very, very basic and not really that interesting, and this 3rd book, like I said, was my favorite. This one's an enemies to lovers, where you see them sort of being enemies in the previous books, and then it builds up to this one, so I did like that aspect. And this one, they sort of still hate each other even once they start hooking up, which I thought was interesting because I've never seen an enemies to lovers sort of go that far. And so I did think that was, you know, unique and interesting and different. But other than that, like, I don't particularly love this series, but I figured one of those books would end up on this list because it is so hyped. Next at number 9 was Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. This one I am obsessed with. This is the one that I think I would have voted for if I had read all these books. I wish this one had won. It was so freaking good. I just read this one earlier this week and literally was obsessed with it. Like, I could not put it down, and I can't remember the last time I read a physical book that I could not put down, because I just haven't been interested in anything enough to do that. The guy in this one is just super grumpy. He has to get married and have a baby in order to get his inheritance, basically. So he ends up marrying his assistant because she kind of volunteers at the last second, like, because she's so used to solving all his problems and things. She's just like, yeah, sure, whatever, like, I'll do it because that's what you need me to do, kind of thing. And he immediately is like, oh, you're gonna fall in love with me, like, you need to remember this is all a game to me, and blah blah blah. And then he's the one that kind of starts falling for her first, and so it was so good. And just, like, the drawn out, like, moments between them were just so good, and I feel like his attitude in general was good. There was a lot of funny moments in this one, and I just really love this book. Like, for me, a sign of a good book is if I'm reading an ebook or an audiobook and I order the physical copy before I'm even done, then I know, like, it's gonna be a 5-star read, and I did that with this book. I was, like, halfway through when I ordered the physical copy because I was like, I need to own this. It was just so ridiculously good. Lastly, at number 10 was Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. This is obviously the second book to It Happened One Summer. I really enjoyed this one. I think I gave it 4.5 stars when I read it. It is a best friends to lovers book, and he is sort of like the town playboy, and all of these people are sort of warning him away from this girl because they think that he is basically up to his usual stuff. And she's back in town because she is filming something for her work, and she ends up staying with him, and it's just really cute. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. Like I said, I gave it 4.5 stars when I read it, and I did really enjoy it. I was surprised to see this one so low on the list because I know people are, like, big Tessa Bailey fans, but I guess because the rest of the ones on this list are, like, super hyped TikTok books, this one just didn't quite measure up to them. But this one I did enjoy. I would have liked to see this one in the top 5. I think, honestly, if I could flip the order of these around almost exactly, I think that would be almost my exact order. Like, honestly, didn't think the picks this year were that great. I did like some of them. Most of them were misses. Most of them didn't even have solid romance plot lines, so I have no idea why they were nominated in this category. But the ones I did enjoy, I enjoyed, so that's nice. And I didn't DNF a book this year, which is also good. Last year I had to DNF one of the ones in this video, which was kind of sad. I will link that video down below if you want to watch it, by the way, with last year's top 10 romances of the year. But those are all my thoughts on the top 10 romances of 2022. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I am still doing new book videos every single day in December, and I will see you next time.